What is guard? A good working definition for the guard in combat sports is any time the structure of your limbs can act as functional barriers between your opponent and yourself while in a bottom position on the ground. You remain in guard so long as your structure prevents your opponent from occupying the space between your elbows and knees for a stable amount of time. In contrast, a guard pass occurs when someone occupies this space so you no longer have an elbow-knee connection and holds it for a minimum of, let's say 3 seconds. Working together, both sets of your limbs are in a position to push and/or pull. There are of course more or less efficient ways to use your limbs to manage the distance between yourself and an opponent on top. When in an ideal but completely defensive scenario, both sets of limbs are in a position to act as frames, or an optimal limb structure to support weight. This typically means being able to maximally employ the stable surfaces at the end of your limb's levers, such as the soles of the feet and specific orientations of the hand, to stop your opponent from progressing forward. However, when attempting to recruit your limbs to perform work like pulling, lifting, or turning your opponent, the goal is to place your limb structure in an alignment that allows you to efficiently and maximally access your kinetic chain. In other words, when you want to move yourself or your opponent using muscle, use as much of it as you can, but when you can use the alignment of your bones to resist force, use bone. Muscles get tired, bones do not. But they break. The filtering process of grappling has led to the classification of 4 major types of guard. Frame-based guards quickly give the user a push-push ability to manage the distance. Examples include the shell guard, which we will introduce shortly, and sleeve and collar variations in the gi. Clamp-based guards, meanwhile, give the player the ability to pull the top person tightly with both sets of limbs. Classic examples include closed guard and certain half-guard variations. Most guards can be classified as a hybrid frame and lever type guard, or push-pull guards, and they give the user a balance of defensive and counter-offensive options. Lastly, the open guard can be described as an engagement phase with no secure entanglements. In practice, we follow the school motto that if you can guard, recover, and pass, you can play. Normally, we would first teach you how to defend and maintain the elbow-knee connection, or guard recover, versus a guard passer. Playing guard is incredibly difficult and complex since you are trying to play from a losing position. In fact, the first of our 4 principles of guard is that you are losing, so distance management and being able to access push-push mechanics is your top priority. The second principle of guard is to get up. Get off the ground and stand up, because you are losing. Our third principle is not to just get up, but try and get on top, and there are 2 ways to do this. You can either create an angle of attack, or sweep the passer to the ground and come up on top. The last principle is to, fuck it, try a leg lock. Well, actually it's to entangle a leg in some sort of hybrid guard, and maybe look to attack a leg afterwards. For now, let's just state the obvious that an opponent on top has the advantages of mobility, gravity, and striking power, if we're talking mixed martial arts or real life. The person on top can approach you in any number of stances, postures, angles, and so on. To help simplify this, we've come up with the following typical passing types you will likely encounter: the kneeler, the wrestler, the runner, and lastly, the athlete. Each of these archetypes has its pros and cons. Having said that, we will begin with a kneeling opponent because in the vast majority of combative scenarios, at some point, the opponent on top has to pin you, and that means coming down to the floor in order to gain dominant position and then submit or hit you with something truly damaging. You will in fact often escape negative positions and then find yourself facing someone on their knees. Despite the myriad of challenges facing the guard player, we will begin our journey here since the guard is what distinguishes submission grappling from other sports and captures the imagination of underdogs everywhere. And the following is an example of what we would expect you to be able to do in order to earn a passing grade for the Foundations of Guard unit. If you would like to think of this as earning a stripe and by passing all 5 units, earning your blue belt, then by all means use this as a gauge of your progress. This is by no means an industry standard or an attempt to discredit other programs, but just our way of adding transparency to our own program here at Grapple University and to those interested in following along.